I'm Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and you're listening to Squatch Talks podcast. Thank you for squatching.
You're listening to Squatch Talks podcast. Real stories and real encounters told by real researchers. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, welcome back to Squatch Talks podcast.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Better and better. Hey, I'll have to say, speaking for myself, of course, this was a rough week, and I just want to thank my lovely bride, Heather, for taking good care of me. Life shows up sometimes, and, I went and got a checkup, and they found something on the bladder. So Tuesday I had it removed, and I was like out of commission for the week. So I'm thankful to say that things are slowly getting back to normal, and I have a whole new respect for, what my dear friend Art's been going through, although I have not even a fraction of what he's going through. So please keep Art always in your thoughts as well. But we are here tonight for a very special episode. But before we get started, I just want to thank our friends over at the Yeti Lair. We've got our Squatch Talks podcast Yeti Bar, if you recall, and Tyrell and Eli are doing a great job out there in New Mexico, and including the whole new body wash, right? So Christmas is around the corner. So remember to go to yetibars.net, and don't forget, use code STP10 at checkout. Also, just want to quickly thank our friends over at Black Rifle Coffee Company for producing such a fine beverage as Tactus Squatch. And hey, we couldn't do the show without their support. So thanks for squatching along with us. And I even got Heather and I ready to drink to enjoy during the show tonight. She's drinking her mocha, and I've got my vanilla with cream. So cheers, my love. So getting business, all taken care of here. Tonight's a special episode. We have joining us tonight in studio at Squatch Talks, also known as NASBRO Headquarters, our dear friend and co-host Art Mack, who's been my research partner for, gosh, how long has it been? Almost like 15, 16 years now. Yep. So let's bring Art into the discussion and hear what he has to say about some of his stories out in the Pine Barrens.
Hey!
There he is.
How you guys doing?
Hey,
Good.
It's been a while, Yeah. Last time we were out was a few weeks ago.
Yes. Yeah.
But hey, I'm looking forward to getting back out with you as soon as the weather warms up a bit. We'll take the viewers back out into the field with us again. But meanwhile, we're here at NASBRO Headquarters and Squatch Talks studio to have a special night of encounters in the Pine Barrens told by one and only Art Mack.
Me?
You. We've been waiting a long time to hear these stories.
We have, yeah.
I kind of got him here tonight under false pretext. I promised him some pizza, and
I'll do anything for pizza.
So
Bacon pizza.
Bacon pizza, of course. Hey, we like what Sasquatch likes, right?
That's correct. Yes.
That is correct. So that is correct.
I got mushrooms.
She got mushrooms. Well, I'm sure Squatch likes mushrooms too, wouldn't you think? I mean,
only
I
the
would
funny ones.
But hey, this is a special episode, so I hope everybody's sitting down and you got your snack table set up and your feet up, and you're ready to hear some stories of encounters in the Pine Barrens told by my friend Art Mack. So here we go.
My first encounter, what I believe was an encounter with Sasquatch, or I'm sorry, at that time I thought it was the Jersey Devil. It was September 1971. Couple of days after school had started. I had just begun my freshman year of high school, and I'd been watching TV that night, and during a commercial break, I needed to answer nature's call. Now, in my house, we had a policy that the lights were basically left on in the bathroom. Once it got dark enough to need them, the first person who used the bathroom left the light on, and then the last person to go to bed shut the light off. And the reason I say this is because you understand, I walked into a bathroom that was already lit. So headed down the hallway, turned into the toward the bathroom. And the hallway kind of opens up in the house. Directly ahead is the bathroom. Off to the left was my brother's bedroom. And my brother and my mom had been in there having a conversation. And the door was cracked open a little bit. So as I'm walking toward the bathroom, I'm kind of like looking in through the crack in the door, seeing if I could see what they're doing, being nosy, seeing, if I could hear something that was going on. I couldn't. So I continued into the bathroom. And not that I was conceited or anything, but I kind of like checked myself out in the mirror as I'm walking to the water closet where I had to, answer nature's call. And as I turn my attention to that, something in the window catches my eye. The window was just above the water closet or the toilet. And there were two red glowing eyes looking at me through the window. Now, to give a little bit of context, there's a permanently mounted aluminum screen that the light from the bathroom is hitting and reflecting off of, and I'm seeing this something outside looking in the window through the screen at me. And these glowing eyes, I didn't know what it was. I figured it can't be a person because people's eyes don't glow, and I didn't know what it was. The face, I could see enough of the face that was highlighted by the light from the bathroom washing through the screen and illuminating just a little bit of the face, like above the brow ridge and down to just below the mouth. And the face looked weird. It was human-like, two eyes, nose, mouth, but it didn't look human, and it was larger than a person. And those red glowing eyes. People's eyes don't glow red, and I knew that, and I just couldn't figure out what it was. My mom heard me, I guess, outside my brother's bedroom door, and she came out and asked me what I was doing. And quite honestly, I couldn't tell her. What do I tell her? So, tell her what, that I just saw something big, looking in the bathroom window at me with red glowing eyes, And I also kind of figured she wouldn't believe me because although I was raised in an environment where I was allowed to be a free thinker, she also often accused me of having a very vivid imagination. So I wasn't sure that she would believe me. And when she asked me what I was doing, I said nothing. And with that, she made some comment that I shouldn't really be spying on, listening in on people's conversations. And then she walked past me and, out somewhere else into the rest of the house. And I finally screwed up enough courage to peek back around the doorway into the bathroom at the window, and whatever it was gone. So now, to give you some perspective, this is a ranch house. Bathroom windows are kind of high up. So at 14, I could see out the window, but if I wanted to see something that was like in the yard and below the level of the window, I would have to get up on my tippy toes. Now, I'm giving you that information because the eyes and what I could see of this face were in the upper half of this window. So it was probably, in my mind, the eyes were maybe 6.5 feet or so above the floor level where I was. And that's, which would have been a tall person, but I figured there had to be somebody outside that was standing on a step ladder or something. I just couldn't figure it out. It truly bothered me to the point where I went to my room and I sat there in the dark for a while, trying to contemplate what it was, what I had just seen. Finally, I had to address nature's call again. And so I ended up trying to, get back, go to the bathroom again. And I peered around the doorway, making sure that there wasn't something in the windows. I reached around, I shut the light off, in the bathroom. Then I walked in and I closed the curtains and held them shut while I did my business. But it bothered me. And I don't think I really got any sleep that night because I was trying to figure out what this was or who this was. The face did not look like anybody I know. The face looked weird. It was big. And again, the red glowing eyes. Now, to give you some idea of what I could see as far as the face, it like probably just above the brow ridge and around the eyes, kind of down and to just below the mouth. That's what was kind of lit up from the bathroom light washing through the screen on it. So, and again, it had to have been like right up against the screen, I think, for me to see that. But it bothered me all night long. I obsessed over it, couldn't figure out what it was, who it was, if it was somebody, who it was, but I didn't really think it was somebody. I just didn't know what it was I had seen. Next morning, I went to school the next day, and it pretty much was on my mind all day. It just had some effect on me, and I just could not figure it out. When I finally got home, I during the course of the school day, I did kind of think to myself, we had a couple ladders in our house. They were usually outside, but sometimes they were in the garage, and I was like, I couldn't remember where they were. So when I got home, I looked in the garage windows to see if the ladders were there, and yeah, they were in the garage. So nobody could have used our ladders anyway, And where I lived, we were anywhere, I guess, about a half mile from our nearest neighbor. We had an airport next to us, but beyond that, the neighbors were, down the road. So I thought, let me look at the trash cans. Maybe somebody was standing on the trash cans. Then back in those days, they were metal trash cans. They hadn't been moved. We had a picnic table in the backyard. So I'm looking at that to see if there were any signs that it had been moved. Now, this thing was heavy. You couldn't lift it. You had to drag it. And there was no signs that it had been dragged. So, not finding anything. And that was the only way I could rationalize that it was a person. I stood under the window and I looked up, and that's when I was just like, oh, damn, what the heck? This thing is tall. Because again, like when I'm in the bathroom, it was maybe the eyes were maybe, above me a little bit. I figured maybe about 6.5 feet off of the floor, in the height of the window. But when I'm outside, because you have the cinder block foundation and you have the floor joist and everything, which raises it up. So I went back in the house looking for something to measure. The only thing I could find was one of those wooden yardsticks, and I'd like put that up against the house, use my finger to where the end is, and keep measuring up this way. And it ended up, the eyes were where I remember the eyes being in the window was about 8 feet off of the ground. And at that, I was like, that can't be a person unless somebody brought a step ladder. But again, that does not account for the red glowing eyes. Now, it was obvious from the night before that it was not like the eyes, it was reflective eye shine, because when it had diverted its glance away from me, the glow diminished significantly until it locked its eyes back on me. And I even thought, was it somebody up on the roof? Could somebody have been up on the roof looking down or hanging off of the gutter or something? But that just didn't make sense. None of that made sense to me. And I just, it just bothered me. And it for years, I could never understand what it was. The only explanation I could come up with at that time was it had to be the Jersey Devil. I did not believe in the Jersey Devil. That was always a problem for me. But I had no other analog to compare it to. It had to be the Jersey Devil. It certainly, in all honesty, there's only one neighbor who could have maybe resembled what I was seeing, but again, his face wasn't that big. And I'm not going to name names, but it was a German, they had a German last name, and they were around the corner from us. They had a farm with some horses. And he had the high cheekbones of like a Native American or something, and deep set, deep recessed eyes. But yeah, I know it wasn't him, so for years, I would think, I kind of just kept trying to work it out, what it was, who it was. Could it have been a person? I really didn't think it was a person, but, I'm not thinking Sasquatch at that time. At that time, Bigfoot lived in the Pacific Northwest or in Canada. So again, the only thing is the Jersey Devil. And since I did not believe in the Jersey Devil, it was just an issue that it had a serious effect on me. I'll be honest. Over the course of the months after, it upset me to the point where I kind of became very withdrawn. School suffered. I really didn't because I was spending all my time trying to figure out what the heck this was that I had seen. It did have a very negative effect, I think, on me psychologically, because I couldn't work it out. I couldn't work out the problem. And over the course of a few years, I finally more or less put in the back of my mind. I resigned myself that it was just something, it was either the Jersey Devil or it was something I couldn't explain. And then, of course, a few years later, when the movie The Amityville Horror came out, and there were commercials for the movie, I think this would have been like 1979. And there was a shot in it, and it was in the movie, where there's a window, you're looking out into the dark night, and you have these two red glowing eyes looking back at you in the movie. And it was in almost every commercial. And that just started freaking me out in a way, because it just brought back, it was a flashback to kind of what I had seen. And, so again, more years later, I've kind of put it behind me. I didn't really think about it that much, but something would come up about the Jersey Devil or something. And I would try to rework the problem, try to get a solution to it, because it just, Jersey Devil just didn't work for me as being, the explanation for what it was. But I never could. And ultimately, I kind of forgot it, and until probably in the mid 1980s, which led to another incident out in the Pine Barrens that kind of brought that all back. And but it's still it to this day, I can't say for certain what it was, but
Wow.
now I believe it was a Bigfoot. At that time I didn't.
Well, back then, people didn't really think, like, they didn't associate red glowing eyes with Bigfoot as much. Like around here, it was the Jersey Devil or something along those lines.
Or
Something demonic.
Big Red Eye up in North Jersey, right?
Yeah, but around these parts, down
Yeah.
South Jersey.
It's the thing. I remember when Big Red Eye was in the news. I think that was actually in the early 80s. It might have been the late 70s. And I read the stories in the news, and I just thought either people were drinking some weird stuff up there, or maybe it was a bear or something. I never had heard of Bigfoot in this part of the country, so it just never occurred to me.
Yeah, and you recall, I think you recall, Art, when I told you the story about one of my shiatsu clients' friends who lived over on that Ringler Road by Apple Pie Hill, and she told us that she had a bear look through the window at her.
I use that.
And kitchen windows like 7.5, 8 feet up off the ground. And it resulted in her selling the home and moving away.
Wow.
Well, I'm curious if she indeed saw a bear or maybe a Squatch looking through the window, because we've both had some strange activity not far from her home, right?
Yes.
But and that's one reason I wanted to make sure the Jersey Devil poster was hanging behind you when you told your story tonight, because
Sorry.
initially you were a Jersey Devil guy and you were going to do a documentary, right?
Yes.
On
Well,
this phenomenon.
we will get to that, and that's how I ultimately came to realize that what I saw in the bathroom window all those years ago was Sasquatch, or Bigfoot. I prefer to use the term Sasquatch. I just think it's more respectful of them. So, again, and I was a Bigfoot believer. I remembered when the news broke about the footage that was filmed out at Bluff Creek. And I remember seeing an article, and I think, was it Nature magazine? It was whatever the publication is for the National Wildlife Foundation at the time. One of my school chums brought it to school, and I saw these pictures of this amazing creature and this write-up and everything. And at no time when I saw that did I think that it was not real. I mean, I couldn't. I just, as soon as I saw the pictures, I was like, "That's real."
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw it on the big screen, and I had no doubt that that was a real thing I was looking at, and it scared
And
me
it
to
gets
death.
me today when I hear these people that are saying, "Oh, it looks like a man in a monkey suit." I don't know what. I would like to know who made that monkey suit, because they'd be could be making millions of dollars.
Right?
Because it was just so realistic. I mean, it just. I'm sorry. I'll just.
No, I
I'll
agree.
go. But so I that's the thing. I always believed in Bigfoot. And at this time, probably 3 or 4 years before I guess about 3 years or so. Because I think the articles came out in early 1968. But I believe that it existed, but I never put two and two together to think that it was a Sasquatch looking in the bathroom. It either had to be a person, which was the most logical, but yeah, it didn't work for me, and or the Jersey Devil. So as I said, I finally put it aside, and occasionally, if Jersey Devil stories would come up, conversation would come up, I would kind of relate this as a Jersey Devil encounter, telling people, well, don't make fun, and joke about things that you don't understand, because there's a lot of weird things, and let me tell you what I experienced, kind of thing,
Right.
So, I just, it just was something that it always just bothered me. The face, I would say the skin was probably kind of like a grayish color, and the eyes were in shadow. So they must have really been, sunken in far enough that the bathroom light was not, basically like, if I look down like this, my eyes are in shadow, kind of thing, and as far as the sides of the face, I assume were in shadow. And the nose, I know you've asked me about the nose before. All I can remember about it was it looked weird, but I really don't remember too much detail about it. I do not know why that is. The mouth was kind of like pursed lips, and it was just though I was concentrating on the eyes, because the eyes were looking at me, and they just, and like I said, if it wasn't for that screen in the window, I probably could have reached out and touched it, or it could have reached in and touched me, So, and just so you guys can know, I've lost audio again, so I'm really not hearing what you guys, if you're saying things or not, nothing's coming through on my headphones. But I said I finally was able to put it aside, and it would come up occasionally, and I'd still try to work the problem out, and I just couldn't. Then by this time, now we're into the 1980s, and I was big into four-wheeling out in the Pine Barrens, and I'd been, probably a number of years out there, and there was a location, it was a couple of lakes, it was a couple miles off the one main highway, and it was a party spot. You know, on the weekends, there could be 50, 60 people camping out there on this one lake. But we went, this was in, I think, May of 1985. I went out there with a bunch of people who were city kids. You know, they had never really been out away from streetlights, you know. So to them, going out there was kind of, you know, something cool, doing something they'd never had a chance to do. But I was the only person who had any experience. I grew up out in the country. I'd spent a lot of times out there in this area, out in the Pine Barrens. And so, you know, they asked me to take them out there. One guy had gotten a new four-wheel drive pickup truck, and he wanted to try it out. And so he just figured, you know, let's do it, you know. So we went out, and yeah, it was going to be a party, you know, I'm not going to lie. But over the course of the evening, one of the young ladies, for, you know, a reason I won't go into for the story, it wasn't really important, but she ended up going off on her own down one of the trails. I don't really know why. She was not a person who had ever been out in the woods, but she decided she had to get away from everybody. And so she took off, you know, and I kind of like knew the trail she went down. So after an hour, she didn't come back. Everyone's like, "Oh, Art, can you go and try to find her?" And, you know, I decided, okay, I'll do that. I want to use my truck, just go down there, drive down there. But there were a bunch of people that were kind of in a state where, let's just say there were some people passed out in the bed of my truck, okay? They had been drinking, perhaps smoking a little too much, you know.
Sounds like a good time.
So, yeah, I couldn't really, I didn't feel like taking them with me, you know, have them bounce out or something. So I grabbed the flashlight out of my truck, checked it out. Damn thing was almost dead. You know, I barely lit up something 6 feet away, but it's all I had. So I, you know, head off down the trail and get a few hundred feet out, and I heard a knocking noise. At the time, I probably tried to figure out what it was. The closest thing I've come to was that maybe somebody was camping out in the woods somewhere, and they were trying to cut some firewood or something, because it was a noise. It didn't really sound like an axe or somebody breaking wood, but it certainly was some kind of knocking sound.
And this was on your way out to go retrieve your friend who
the girl.
Yeah.
The girl who had walked off.
So this was on your way out. You heard
Yes.
knocks.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know I heard knocks. I heard a sound that, again, I thought was somebody probably.
You're like, who the hell's building a
firewood.
house at this time of night,
I
right?
didn't think that, but I definitely thought that it must have been somebody with an axe trying to just cut up some wood or something for a fire. Even though I know where the sound was coming from, there was no campsites. But, you know, back then, campgrounds, you know, camping was kind of like, you know, you just pulled your truck or your car over and you just, you know, went to sleep. You started a fire, and you know, so the state of New Jersey was not as strict about things as they are today. So I heard that noise, listened, didn't hear anything else, wondered what it was. Walked maybe another 50 yards or so, and I was coming up on an area next to the trail where there had been a clear cut, maybe 50, 75 feet deep, maybe about 300 feet long, and it was right next to the trail. They left like a thin ribbon of vegetation next to the trail. But so it wasn't cleared from the trail all the way over. There were some low bushes, and then there was this clearing, and it had apparently been a couple of years earlier that it had been cleared because there were a lot of saplings and other stuff like, wheatgrass and stuff growing in that. So as I'm approaching this, I heard what I would say was probably a growl. It was a growl or a grunt or something like that. And then there was a bit of a, I don't want to say it was a scream. There was a noise, and I thought something maybe had killed a rabbit, maybe a fox or something had killed a rabbit. But and I'll be honest, I even thought at one point, did something get a hold of this girl that I'm looking for?
Oh, boy.
Because, I didn't know. But I listened for a while. I didn't hear anything else. So, yeah, my heart was pounding, not knowing what it was. But
Did the Jersey Devil go through your mind at all at this point?
at that time, no.
No, okay.
So I continued on my walk, listening. My heart was still pounding. I was a little nervous, but it's just I had to get do what I had to do. I had to find this girl. And the weird thing is, I never actually. Now I think about it, I never actually thought to call out to find out maybe it was her. Maybe she had gone off trail or something and hurt herself. That's just coming to me now. I never thought to do that. But ultimately, I continued on down the trail. And when I started approaching the end of the trail, which is maybe a half, 2/3 of a mile, I knew I was coming up on the end because there was no moon. And Eric, with the sugar sand, the trail is almost like lit up, even with no moon. And I could see ahead of me that the trail was ending. It was going into black. So I knew that was the end of the trail because I knew there was a big pile of trees and debris that was piled up. So you didn't continue on into a commercial area.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
So as I'm approaching that, I see this little pinpoint of red, and it was dim, and then it got bright, and then it got dim again. And it did this a couple of times. And instantly, of course, I realized what it was. It was the cherry on somebody's cigarette. Somebody was puffing gets bright red, and then it dims down between puffs. So I pointed the flashlight kind of down toward the ground, turned it on and off a couple of times. And of course, she's like, who's that? I identified myself. Next thing I know, she's like right on me. She's like grabbing onto me, and I could feel she's shaking, And at that time I was, I'm not gonna say I was a stud, but I'm like in my I'm in my late 20s, and I was like, she jumped, she comes, grabs onto me, and she's really kind of holding me tight, but yet I did realize she was shaking. Now it could have been cold because the temperature, I don't think any of us had jackets or anything, and it was, I believe, like early mid-May, so it was getting a little chilly. It was probably down in the 50s at this point, so she could have just been cold, but it just seemed odd, And so she tells me that she would have come back, but there was somebody or something in the woods next to her, like off to which would have been to my right, but there was something off in the woods moving around, walking around, moving around. She didn't know what it was. She was afraid to come back.
Wow.
Again, you think you're afraid, but yet you light up a cigarette and You know, I don't know. It was kind of weird, but I just told her it's probably just a deer. I said, you know, or it could even be a mouse. Some of the smallest creatures make the most noise. And, you know, so I'm comforting her a bit and everything, and she seemed to be okay, and she wanted to get back. So we turned around, and, but before, I'm sorry, before this, when I had asked her more specifics of where these sounds were. So she took the flashlight and she turned it on. She pointed over that way, and I don't think the beam of the flashlight even hit the vegetation 20 feet away from us. That's really how bad that flashlight was. The batteries were basically dead. But we ultimately started heading back, and within a few steps, something started walking. Something started walking with us. And I'm like, that's interesting. So she starts telling me that's what I heard.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, well, let's just keep going. And whatever it was, it stayed with us, but stayed off in the woods. And at one point, I did say something, hey, very funny, guys, you know, thinking it was somebody, assuming it was a person. I'm like, you know, very funny. You might scare her, but you're not scaring me, you know. No response. Everything was silent. So we started walking again, and it started walking with us.
So it was stopping when you stopped.
Yes, it was definitely,
Paralleling.
it was keeping pace with us. Occasionally it might get a little ahead of us or a little behind, but it basically was keeping up with us.
Mm.
But it was obvious to me that for every 5 or 6 footsteps we were taking, it was only taking a couple, and it was still keeping up with us. Now, again, people, the word Jersey Devil came into the conversation around this point. The girl was certain that it was the Jersey Devil, and I told her, "Oh, you know, it's the Jersey Devil's not real. You know, it's just something that we country people made up to keep you city people out of the woods. You know, so that we can enjoy the woods without you guys out here. You know." But
Seems
she was-
legit.
she was certain it was the Jersey Devil, and I was like, you know, it's probably. I think the explanation I gave was, I think it's just a buck. It's probably a deer just being territorial, and it's just seeing us off. I'm trying not to get her to panic, you know, and at the same time, I gotta be honest, I'm probably getting a little nervous too, not knowing what it was, but. The course of the conversation was definitely it was the Jersey Devil, and she wanted to just run. And I'm like, I didn't know what it was, but I know that if there's a predator and if you start running, that it kind of sets off that predator prey instinct, and figuring she's probably wouldn't get that far before it was on top of her. So I was telling her, I was telling her, don't run, you know, and I actually, if you remember, I told you this, I had to put my hand basically in her jeans waist to hold her back because she really wanted to take off running. I told her no. I said, look, you know, we're cool. We're safe. Whatever it is, it's staying over there, you know, and as long as it stays over there, we're good. But I'll be honest, Jersey Devil was probably starting coming into my mind. By now, I still didn't believe it, but because of what happened, you know, some 14 years earlier, whatever it was, I was probably more open to it. So that's kind of how the walk back to the fire and the group, and you know, really, you know, proceeded. It was, we just kept walking. At one point, whatever this thing was, it started getting closer to us. So took the flashlight with what little, you know, lighting ability it had, and I turned it on and shined it in that direction. I saw nothing, but it stopped whatever it was. And again, we listened, there's no sound of anything. It's deadly silent. And this is again early May, so there's no insects really. So it really was, you know, quiet. It was, and you know what it's like, Eric, when we talk about this all the time. We're in the middle of the pine barrens. There's got to be thousands of insects, hundreds of creatures within listening distance, and it's absolutely silent. And that's what this situation was. So we continued walking. It continued keeping pace with us. She's really getting nervous, and I'm really starting to get a little nervous, but there's something, and Eric, again, you can understand this, and any guys that are listening to this, when we're in a situation with women tend to maybe go a little over the top, with what they believe it is or what can happen to them. So as a guy, our job is to kind of like keep calm and, keep them out of trouble, I guess, so that's kind of what I was doing and trying to do. So we ended up, finally, we get to the point where we're hitting that clearing again. Which is basically where I'm coming up on the location where I had heard the growl or whatever, and the noise that seemed like something had get killed. And whatever this thing was, I thought finally it would be out in the open. It would walk out into this clear cut, and I could actually see what it was or who it was. But it stayed on the back side of the clear cut. It stayed in the trees. So we're continuing on, and then we reach, the point where on the way out, I heard all that stuff, and everything was quiet, and just like, I don't know, there was kind of an uneasy feeling, I guess. And all of a sudden, there was this horrendous scream, howl, yell. It was like a guttural, it started out as a guttural growl, and it kind of transitioned into this loud, high-pitched scream.
Some people describe it like a lion roaring and like transitioning into like a T-Rex.
Well, I've never been around a T-Rex to know what they sound like. Lion, I wouldn't, maybe, I mean.
You feel it.
Like
well, this was the thing. It was so loud. First, every hair on my body stood up, and after it got done, it maybe a second or so later, this shock wave just hit us, like the sonic wave hit us, and it literally took both our breaths away, because I kind of gasped and I heard her gasp for air, and then everything was dead silent. And I'll be honest, I'm probably thinking it's the Jersey Devil.
Yeah.
At that point, I knew it wasn't a person. And she wanted, so I will admit, we started walking a lot faster back toward everyone else. And it didn't take long. Within a couple 100 feet or so, we could begin to see the fire through the woods, and we could begin to smell the fire and hear the radios playing. So I'm still trying to hold her back, and she just wanted to run. Now, when we started walking again, this thing started coming with us again. Started pacing us, they're staying even with us. I finally said, "The hell with it, let her go." I just took my hands off her waistband, boom, and she was gone. And I continued walking on my own, but at a much rapid
pace.
More rapid pace.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing stayed with me. And finally, I'm getting close enough where, I can actually hear her talking to the couple of people that are still, and this thing in the woods, wherever it was, it continued walking, but it started walking away
Veered off.
from me, kind of veered off to the left and just went deeper into the woods, which was good. And at that point, I probably just kind of ran the last, couple dozen yards.
Oh, yeah.
But when I get back there to the fire, I think there were like 7 or 8 people, and there were only 2 of them that were still awake. The driver of the other truck was passed out, drunk or high or whatever in his truck. There was no waking him up. And there's people, in the bed of my truck who are like, passed out in the other truck. And I'm like
Naked.
looking at the situation. Now, she's telling these 2 people what happened and they don't believe it. So they ask me, it's like, did that really happen? And I said, no.
Yeah.
Because I said, no, what am I going to do? I can only drive one vehicle. The other guy's like passed out. I don't think anyone else honestly even had a driver's license, let alone know how to drive a stick shift, with a first gear, low gear, which both of the pickup trucks, mine and his had, So
You didn't want to spook them.
dude, I just, there was just no way to wake these people up, all I did at the point, the girl, she jumped in the cab of my truck and I looked around and I just didn't think there was any way to get anybody up and, get them out. So I guess part of me was thinking, they're in the bed of the truck. I'm going to be in the cab of my truck. If there is something, I'm probably going to be safe. There's probably going to be some other morsels of food to eat that are easier to get than me, So what was I going to do? Seriously, so I just took the last couple pallets we had, threw them on the fire, and I was getting tired. Even, I had that adrenaline crash.
Yeah, that adrenaline crash.
So, I just climbed into the bed of my truck or into the cab of my truck, locked the doors. I kind of cracked the sliding window in the back and the vent window just a little bit. And, I tried to sleep. I did sleep off and on a little bit. I swear at one point something woke me up, hitting the windshield and rolling off or down the hood of the truck and off. I didn't see anything. It's dark, of course, but I just assumed I'm in the pine barrens, there's oak trees, there's pine trees. It's probably just a pine cone or something like that. So I didn't really think too much of that. And then I did drift back off to sleep. And, certainly I never woke up hearing anybody screaming or anything, or anybody getting dragged out of the bed of the truck or anything. So that was all good. But I finally woke up the next time it was first light. It's just that point where there's enough light, you can kind of see some detail on things, but not quite, and the window was misty, so it seemed like it probably was misty raining. I did drift back to sleep again, and I woke up a little bit later, I guess, and it's lighter, and the people in the bed of the truck are starting to get up, and I hear them and everything, and I got up and I reminded everybody, if you're going to use a bush to relieve yourself, especially women, don't back too deep into the bush, because we have pine rattlers. We have the timber rattlers in New Jersey, and that time of the year when it's cold at night, they'll crawl up under a bush, and women back into it. you know, as well as telling the guys, just look where where you pee, because
You never know what might be peeing back.
well, you warm them up with your urine and then they become active. And, if you're too close to a bush or something, I mean, believe me, that's sage advice for anybody out in the woods,
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
especially for women. Don't back too deep into that bush.
I usually go against a tree and I like kind of use it to like hold on so I can.
Or
So,
holds my bumper or my truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
usually I try to
Yeah.
play it safe.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
We've got footage of that too, folks, if you'd like to.
What, of her or you?
Her.
Oh, okay.
I always pick the wrong place to go pee. Where he places his game cameras, he always gets
Oh,
me
yeah.
peeing
Yeah.
every time.
Strategically placed.
No,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
me.
I think so.
Well, all right, I got to tell you, that's pretty hair-raising, those stories. I've always enjoyed, and Heather and I have been to this location with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so
So-
squatchy back there.
Totally picture in our
Yep.
minds this
But
occurring.
you have to realize today the kids with the quads and dirt bikes are tearing up the area,
Oh, yeah.
We couldn't even get back there the one day without.
Even though there were a lot of people on the weekends camping, I'll be honest with you, there were people that would camp out there all summer long, because it was actually on private property. I think it still is now, but the state has bought property around it and they blocked it off. You can't legally drive in there now, although people disregard that because unfortunately there's not a lot of state rangers or police that are back there to patrol and keep people out. But but at that time, it was a cool spot to go. You could literally just park and just walk tent to tent
Yeah.
and get high with people, drink some beer, and just there was a rope swing into the lake,
Oh, it's beautiful.
and just have fun. Of course, a lot of stolen cars from Philadelphia ended up in the bottom of that lake.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
every 6 months, the police used to come in there with a heavy duty wrecker, I think from the military, they borrowed from Fort Dix or something, and pull out Corvettes and just about
Gosh.
anything that was stolen out
I
of
would
Philly.
never have known that.
Which is weird because I used to four-wheel it back there. And it just always amazed me that people could get station wagons back there, and
Oldsmobile. I mean,
yeah, Oldsmobile, exactly. But there would be people camping there in station like Ford's Country Squire station wagons. And
oh
I'm like,
yeah, well,
how the heck did they get in there?
That
Because
they're like
Tanks.
tanks.
four-wheel drive was
I had
hairy
one.
trip in there, But yeah, I guess that's it. Those cars had higher ground clearance. They had enough power to just power through it.
And air suspension rides. It was very
It
comfortable.
was a cool place though, seriously, we all, it was a big party spot.
Well, we're gonna have to get you back out there with us again because it's it's a spot that we all hold very near and dear to our heart.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
and you're the only one who
Not
can
so much
seem to
for
find
me.
their way back there. I never get.
We
No,
always
yeah.
have to take a roundabout, then we get stuck.
The people, the kids have just ruined it. The last time I was there, I was so disheartened to see how it'd been so trashed out, and
Well.
it's, yeah, I guess we'll get back there.
We'll have to get back out there. But
And Art, every time I watch Amityville Horror and I see the red
light-
glowing eyes,
red lights.
I always think of you.
Now,
Mhm.
I can watch that now,
That's good. You've
It
been
doesn't
past
bother
it.
me. Well, and well, I haven't given you the last,
Not yet.
the last
Portion
potential
of this, right?
Squatch encounter.
And we could also spend probably another half hour to an hour just on your first encounter in the
Yeah.
70s. There's a lot of
Yeah.
details I know that you've shared with me that you're not ready to go public with yet.
Yeah, I still don't really, I mean, as much as I'm talking about it now, I don't feel comfortable, talking about it that much because it really had an effect on me. I mean,
Absolutely.
and honestly, it caused me to make some bad decisions regarding my life at that time. It had that much of an impact
Wow.
on me at that time as a kid,
Yeah.
in school and everything. It just and it's just kind of personal.
Absolutely.
But,
And I respect that, of course. But I'm saying
it
I'm so
just-
pleased that you're even willing to talk about that much of it. If Art's willing, do you want to go into the last one's not that time consuming? Do you want to tell the third?
I can, and then I can briefly, wrap it up, I guess, as to how I got to this whole point where I am now.
Great.
So it was again summer of 1985. It was August. It's now been about 3 months, and I'm out there. I continued to four-wheel, but I stopped going out there at night. That's the one thing I didn't feel comfortable doing. That's the one modification I had done to my four-wheel, and I still went out in the woods. I still enjoyed it. I had a great time. I had a nice four-wheel drive pickup truck, and it was very good I just had a lot of fun. As I told you, I probably put hundreds into thousands of miles on that truck running the trails out in the Pine Barrens and everything. So that incident did not keep me out of the woods, but it sure kept me out of the woods at night. Once or twice I had to go out there at night, and I kept the windows rolled up and the doors locked. And I've never done that before, because it just kind of like put me enough at ease that I didn't like going out there at night. In fact, after this final thing that happened in '85, I've been out four-wheeling with my girlfriend, and so we had a cooler. I think we had some hot dogs. There's nothing major. We just had, I think, a package of hot dogs for us to eat, and some a 6-pack maybe of beer, I think, and a couple sodas in it. But we were four-wheeling. She wanted to go four-wheeling on the way, and it was right on the way, and we just kind of like decided, or she decided, you know what, let's just stay out here. Let's just camp out in the truck, sleep out in the truck. She, I guess, far preferred that to going to the island. And so there was this one area, it was cleared out a few years earlier, a couple years earlier, I think, as a result of a forest fire. They'd cleared this area out to park equipment. And so we pulled in there, and there was already a couple guys in a pickup truck with dirt bikes, and we just assumed they were going to leave, and we would have the spot to ourselves as it got darker. Unfortunately, I guess they got to look at my girlfriend. They decided to hang around, and this, my girlfriend, she was kind of overly friendly in that she was like, well, we can't fix food and eat in front of them if they don't have anything. So, we called them over, and they said they didn't have anything to eat. So, I cooked up some hot dogs for all of us, and they continued to stay. My mistake, I guess. I will admit, and I'm sorry not to be sexist, but this young lady, my girlfriend, she had been a gymnast when she was younger. She had actually placed in the junior class, I guess, in Florida one year.
So basically, you're saying she was smoking hot.
Yeah, and she knew it. And she would wear these short cutoffs that basically, showed a good percentage of her backside. So you understand now why these dirt bikers were kind of hanging around,
Yeah, I'm getting the full image.
I wasn't the happiest, that she basically invited them to have dinner with us and everything, but. Yeah, I had hoped that they would leave after they ate, but they didn't. So, we kind of like talked a while, and then they went off. I think they did some more riding on their bikes and everything, but they came back ultimately, and they continued to stay.
Bummer.
We get rid of them. Well, so it got dark, and we were sleeping in the bed of my pickup truck. Now at this time, I had a blue tarp that I draped over the bed to use as a tent to give us some privacy. And I had a couple of 2x3s that I stuck in the stake pockets of the the bed of the truck to give us some headroom. So we we
Good idea.
crashed out. And the guys, I guess they decided to sleep in the bed of their truck. I don't know if they thought maybe something else was going to go on, but it didn't. And so everyone falls asleep, I guess. And I'm all of a sudden awakened in the middle of the night. I just hear this guy, it's one of the other guys yelling. I can't understand what he's saying. He's just yelling, screaming, and it sounded like something tried to get him or something. But I jumped up when I woke up, and I have the tarp. So now I'm fighting the tarp, which wakes my girlfriend up, and she jumps up, and she's fighting. So we're fighting each other. We're fighting the tarp, and working our way toward the back of the truck. And I had left the tailgate down, and let's just say I stepped off the tailgate, and I landed on my back on the ground, and she fell on top of me.
Yeah.
And literally just took my breath away for a few seconds, But this guy is over here, and he's yelling and screaming, and I hear him saying something about the Jersey Devils trying to get him. So my girlfriend gets off me. She gets up. She goes to the cab of the truck, and I go up to see what's going on with these guys. And it was a very clear night. The moon was out, and I don't think it was a full moon, but it was pretty close to it, and it was very bright. So I walk over there, and the guy's, his friend's trying to calm him down, and he's kind of running around, and he tried to get me, oh my God, the Jersey Devil, and all this stuff. So finally calms him down, and he begins to relay what happened, and that is, they were sleeping in the bed of the truck. And he was sleeping on his left side. I think he was the driver, the owner of the truck. So he was on the left side, I guess. On his left side, so his back was to the side of the bed. He said he woke up hearing something bump into the side of the truck bed behind him. He kind of did one of these half turns that you do, and he's still half asleep. And he said he saw something in silhouette, a huge figure standing next to the truck. And as he's looking at it for a second, he said he didn't know if it was a dream or what. He realized whatever it was reaching for him. And that's when he started freaking out and started screaming. And that's what woke me up and everybody up. And somehow in the course of that, whatever this was had disappeared. So around this time, my girlfriend came over, and I had gotten one of these huge lanterns. It was like kind of like a railroad lantern, it's like a headlight with a battery attached to it, And she gave that to me. So I start scanning around the woods around us, and there's nothing there, And I start sweeping along the road. Now, where we were parked, there was a drive right in front of my truck and a drive right in front of this guy's truck. And there was a thin line of trees between the parking area and the dirt road. So I'm sweeping the flashlight along the road, and all of a sudden, like, at the other end, literally in front of where my truck was, something apparently ran off or dove into the trees on the other side of the road. So I quickly snapped the flashlight over there, and you could still see the tree branches moving from something that had gone through there. You could continue to hear this thing moving off away from us, and it was making this sound. I guess the best way for me to describe it is like this sound when you kind of cock your tongue off the roof of your mouth, like you're like, kind of, and it was kind of doing a sound very similar to that as it walked off. at that point, my girlfriend, she just grabbed my arm and she said, "We're out of here." She said, "Not in 5 minutes, but now." So, she ran back to the truck. I went back to the truck, and she's already got my truck started, and I'm in the back. I'm trying to gather up the tarp and putting it under the cooler and stuff. And she had all the lights on. She had my handheld spotlight in her hand, and that was it. I mean, we drove out, and she had the spotlight, right on the spot where wherever this thing had gone in. As I'm turning left, she's keeping the light on it, and basically she ends up shining right in my eyes and partially blinded me, which I'm like, oh, thanks a lot, And then at one point I saw the clock on my dash, and it was 1:30 in the morning when this happened. So that's kind of that story.
And what time of year was this? I forget.
This was in August.
August.
It was a week or two before Labor Day.
So,
And so,
Interesting.
you had to think it was the Jersey Devil. I didn't think. Who would have thought Sasquatch? And that's what I thought it was.
yeah.
And for decades, until the early 2000s, when I wanted to do a documentary on the Jersey Devil, and I researched it for a couple years. And I was just having an issue with it. There's so many different descriptions of what the Jersey Devil looks like, and honestly, there's not a lot of people who have actually claimed to have laid eyes on it. But the description runs the gamut from about a 3-foot tall turkey with lizard-like skin to a 10 to 12 foot tall man covered head to foot in long black hair. But I could never bring the story together. And one night I was watching, I think it was Monster Quest, and I heard I think it was the Snell Grove Lake episode where they do a tree knock, and I realized that sound was enhanced, but it brought back in my mind that night back in '85 when I had to go, chase after that girl. That knocking sound that I thought was somebody cutting wood with an axe or something. I was like, that sounds like it.
Yeah.
And I started researching, Bigfoot sightings in New Jersey. I knew about Big Red Eye. I thought that's all that was going to show up. But these sites I was on, there's probably a couple dozen, sightings reports, and I'm reading them, and they actually sounded the same as Jersey Devil sightings. The red glowing eyes, shaking branches, inhuman screams and vocalizations and everything. And the other thing was some of these sightings were exactly where I had those encounters in 1985. So I had the light bulb moment. Oh my God. Jersey Devil is Bigfoot. Oh, that's kind of cool,
Mind blown.
And then I started, oh wait, that means my Jersey Devil encounters, or what I believe to be Jersey Devil, were actually Sasquatch. And that was cool. I was like, oh my God, I felt totally comfortable with that. Even what happened to me when I was 14, as his eyes looking in the back of the window at me. All of a sudden, all that anxiety and stuff I had, couldn't figure out what it was, it made sense. And I was okay with it. I was good. And then the final realization, oh my God, Bigfoot lives in New Jersey. I could have been out in the Pine Barrens looking for Bigfoot all these years.
Unbelievable.
So,
Yep.
that's how it goes. That's kind of like my stories.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love it.
And the rest is history, of course, because not long after that, you hooked up with Regina, right?
Yes.
Of Finding Bigfoot fame.
Yes.
And And that put us in touch with one another.
Yeah.
And we continued that quest of looking for Bigfoot out in the Pine Barrens
Yeah.
until the present day, where here we are, still doing it after all
Yeah.
these years. So.
After all these years. Although I admit, after my experiences last year, the summer of 2022, I really don't consider myself to be doing research anymore.
There you go. Oh, hey, that's
You know,
cool.
I've had all the answers that
Yeah.
I was looking for. So, but
Fair
I still
enough.
go out and I still enjoy it, and things are still happening.
Right, and if nothing else, you're getting some good fresh air and some activity out in the
Well, I
forest.
need to do that with, with my health condition,
Sure.
my health situation. They tell
Which
me I
we
got to get
encourage.
exercise.
We encourage our viewers and our followers to do that anyhow, right? That's part of this, is to get them hopefully to go out and enjoy nature. And in the process, if they see anything, then they're welcome to contact us. Where can they get a hold of us, Heather?
Squatch Talks Podcast at gmail.com.
At gmail.com. That's right.
Hmm.
And as Art has said in previous episodes, because I don't know if anybody watching still remembers, but the last 4 or so, 5 episodes, we've been taking you out in the field with us, right, Art? I mean,
Yeah.
we've been
Yeah.
trying to get the people to come along with us, if you will,
Mhm.
out in the field to kind of do what we're doing and get a little idea of what it is, what we
Yeah.
do when we go out looking for Bigfoot.
That's
So,
always been important. When started the Facebook page,
on North American Sasquatch Bigfoot Researchers Organization.
correct, back in December of 2012. The whole point was to educate people, give people who do not have the ability to get out into the woods the opportunity to experience what it's like, and I used to do those summaries. Unfortunately, I don't really have the time to do that anymore. But my thought when I wrote those was that people can read them and actually in their mind live what it's like to go out into the woods looking for Bigfoot. And quite honestly, you got these shows that make you think that you go out there and the Squatches are just waiting to see you, but that's not the case. And often you go out there and nothing happens. But it's the subtle things you got to listen for. You may not think they're there, but they are. It's the twig snap. It's that shuffling of the grass or something. That tells you they're there. The whistles. And
Wow.
occasionally the eyes.
In your second encounter, though, you had 2 things happen when you went to retrieve your friend who had taken the walk. You had 2 things happen that I still have yet to experience myself. The paralleling and the scream that's so loud that you feel it in your chest. Those are 2 things you and I still talk about. Hey, hopefully we'll get parallel tonight, right? Or screamed at. And Heather, of course, has gotten growled at as well. While she, reads her book in the tent while we're out on ops,
Yeah.
So
And the thing is that over the years, we have experienced a lot of vocalizations, but they're always off in the distance.
right,
I think they feel safest that way. And this is not getting into the whole thing about, the stuff that's been brought up in the Eric Mintel investigates shows with the connection between me and Sasquatch.
right.
Just leaving that out of the equation, we've had a lot of activity, but it's just usually at a distance, and I think that's how they feel safest. They like to keep a bit of distance between people. I think personally they don't like to get closer than maybe 50 to 75 feet from us. I think they like to have that safety zone.
Buffer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I love hearing these stories. Every time I hear it, it gets better and better, and it's definitely something that.
Well, I like your stories with getting yelled or getting growled at and stuff. I mean, that's impressive.
Well, but those are in season 1. So if you are listening, you got to go back to season 1 and check those out. Okay?
Hey, I got
Well-
growled at like a couple months ago. What are you talking about?
Where was this? On the
Expedition.
Pennsylvania expedition. Yes, I know. I
Oh.
was teasing you. I wanted to get you to talk. But no, Heather's a trooper, and she's learned how to pee behind the truck real well. And she takes one for the team, and we'll hang back at base camp, right, Art? When we're out
Yeah.
doing our thing. She's out
Yeah.
there.
Well,
Babe.
yeah. I mean, we'll pretend that that's all how it's set up for her to do that. And the reality is she just doesn't, she just wants to sit in the truck and
Stay
play with
warm.
and play with a smartphone or whatever. It's not a plan that she stays.
You know what it is, folks. Once the ring goes on, okay, and she, oh, honey, I'm not into this Bigfoot anymore.
I am totally into it. I don't like being cold. I really
Yes.
don't.
Well,
I think
yeah.
we've been on quite a while now, and it's going to be tough for anyone to hang with us. I see we still have some people sticking with us though, so I really want to thank everybody.
All right, I
for
forgot this was live.
tuning
Sorry.
in live on Squatch Talks podcast.
You should have told me to shut up.
No, your stories are great, and I'm never going to cut you off. You know that. This is
But you
what-
could.
It's all about
I wouldn't
you
be
right now.
offended.
Hey, this is real stories and real encounters told by real researchers.
Yes.
That's what this is about, right? And the people who are following and listening along with us, I hope this has been one of our more exciting episodes lately, for sure, because we actually have some pretty cool stories tonight from
Yeah.
Art. So
No,
thank
Art's
you.
great.
And Art has taken us back into these spots. We've gone back to look even for this last stories location, and it's all overgrown now, right, Art?
Yeah. I haven't found it yet.
Yeah, it's really tough to find because the forest will take over again, right? That's
Very rapidly.
very rapidly, and amazing because like even when we had these wildfires back at the Bowl and Cape Pond, right? How quickly things start to grow back.
Yeah.
So again, it's beautiful out in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. So if you haven't had an opportunity to get out there, please do. Please remember to check out our merch site at Spring. Right, Spring Tea or Tree, whatever the heck they're calling themselves these days.
I think it's just called
Holidays are
Spring.
coming up. Christmas is around the corner, so don't forget to go to YetiBars.net.
And I apologize to everybody for boring them with my stories.
I'm
not the
doing
best
the wrap
I'm
up
not
here.
the
all right?
best storyteller.
Give me 2 seconds to do the wrap up with the
Whatever.
YetiBars.net. Remember, go to YetiBars.net and don't forget to use code STP10 at checkout. How much is free shipping?
$75.
She's good. So, hey, those were some fantastic stories. I hope everybody enjoyed hearing Art's tales of some of the encounters he's had over the years in the Pine Barrens. And we're looking forward to maybe getting out real soon and making some more stories, of course.
Absolutely.
And hopefully the two of us will continue to be able to get out there with as we are aging into this process, but fortunately we're bringing in some younger blood along with us to keep us motivated, right? I want to thank you for coming out and telling us your tales and like no one else can.
Well, you're welcome.
I know you earned your bacon pizza.
Well, thank you. I just feel bad, sometimes because I'm not the best storytelling in front of a camera, but so I might have rambled on a little bit, but
yeah, they could always play at 2x. They can increase the speed.
And hey, like this is our Mack talking to you live from Squatch Talks Podcast. Yeah.
But no,
There
hey,
I was, out in the woods.
you.
Something was following me.
But no, we had a great
blooper
time.
reel.
We had a great time. Blooper material. Hey, there's always some blooper material, but I haven't done bloopers lately because we've had such great activity out in the forest. But I want to thank again everybody for tuning in and checking us out. I was going to have the Jeff Meldrum station ID at the beginning. I couldn't figure out how to get the audio to play, just the
Let's
video.
just eat some pizza.
So let's go eat some pizza. And hey, what do we say?
Thanks for
Squatchin. Thanks for checking out this episode of Squatch Talks Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and give us a like, and stay tuned for more exciting stories on Squatch Talks.